5-minute penalty to Chicago, a game misconduct, and then Manson having words with Steven. And now Butcher gets into it. We're going to have a brawl, folks. Stand by.
What's going on, Mike? How you doing, bud?
I'm good, man. Just living. St. Louis was like 80 degrees today, which is pretty nice. It's been a big heat wave here lately, so kind of nice to just get outside and see the kids off to school in a hoodie today. First hoodie of the season, of the year, it feels like. In the fall, man. It's a good feeling. It's my favorite time of the year.
Yeah, dude. Summer's wrapping up. Hoodie weather is among us. Although Tommy is West Coast and I'm in the desert, so I don't know how many hoodies we're going to be wearing anytime soon. But
it's going to take you a little bit, man. It'll show up, but just about 2-month delay compared to where I am in the Midwest.
True.
Yeah, this is going to be my first fall out in Vegas, so like I'm hoping I still kind of get that vibe, but I don't think anything can compare to the Midwest, right? Because you got the Leafs and you got all that. I don't know, like the flannel comes out, the pumpkin spice, everything comes out. It's a beautiful time of year.
It's just different, man. Like you kind of get used to wherever you've been. If you're a Midwesterner to the core, it is strange not to see corn. You know what I mean?
It's very true.
You drive up Highway 55 or you drive across Highway 70 in Missouri, Illinois, and it's just corn rows. Boom, 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 boom. And you get in the desert, man, it's just nothing but scrub. It doesn't change no matter what the season is. You're still looking at the same thing. It's different, man, for sure.
Well, so we kind of, skipped the intro a little bit, but, we have Mike McKenna on, professional tendy, on-air personality, podcast host, amateur chef. What don't you do is the question.
What I don't do. You know what I don't do? I don't golf very well. I don't like golf. For a lot of years, I tried to fool myself into thinking I did because I was a hockey player, and I'm not good at it. I don't really like it. I'll play in tournaments if I have to, but yeah, that I'm brutal at that. There's other things in life I'm not good at. A lot of things. It's just I try to stay away from them.
It's funny. We had Jansen on yesterday, and he's also not very good at golf, but he's trying because he just got a house on a golf course. So
we've golfed together, and you want to see the whole course. You put Cam and I in a cart, and we'll take you for the grand tour.
Yeah, that was definitely entertaining. I've gotten into golf over the years myself, but I'm not very good either. So it's an acquired taste. I feel like just because you're a hockey player doesn't necessarily mean that goes hand in hand, even though it feels like it.
That just frustrates me. That's all it is. Like I'm used to being pretty decent at things, and when I find something like that I got to a point a couple of years ago, I'm like, man, I either need to take lessons or quit because I was losing it, and I have a really short fuse, and I'm not. I don't do well with those types of situations, and I just decided to cut my losses and become a tournament only type of guy. And I bought a mountain bike instead, and I can go do that and feel myself get better and have fun. And if I'm not having a great day, I can just put a foot down and be in nature, which is great. So it was a pretty good trade-off. And when I was playing too, it was, I got training out of it. You're not getting any training on a golf course, and that's 5 hours of your day.
True.
I could go ride for 2 hours and be happy and be in the woods and try to avoid deer and chipmunks and whatever else would run across the trail and get something out of it, So it was a good trade-off.
I feel like we should talk about that before we talk about hockey, because you just recently went on a crazy bike ride. I saw your Instagram stories. It was like 9 hours a day. Is that what you were doing?
Yeah, man. Like the first day I did 93 miles, and I think it took me 11 hours because I stopped a couple times. And I also didn't take into account the 1,300 feet elevation that was going to take place between Sedalia, Missouri and Rocheport, Missouri, which was basically like going up the Ozark Plateau. I think I was just arrogant to the whole situation. I figured like I'm an old pro athlete. I ride a bike a decent amount. I'll be fine. I was not fine. I got done with that first day, and my ass was so sore and bruised, and like it took over a week to heal, and not like just straight bruised. So that my saddle sores, it took longer than I expected. I'm riding in the dark. I nearly got killed by a groundhog on a trestle bridge. Wow. Just all kinds of crazy things happened. And then the second day, I kind of was like ready to go home. I was ready to just put my bike on the train in Jeff City, Missouri, and go home. And I was like, no, man, you're not going to quit. Just get on the bike and see how it feels. And I'm happy I brought tools with me because I made some adjustments to the bike and had some better shorts. And next day I did 70 miles. And then the last day was like 35 or 40. So it was 210 miles over 3 days. And it's pretty flat. Like it's a converted rail bed, the Katy Trail, it's limestone. So like when you talk about 8, 9, 10 hours a day, like I was pedaling for 8 or 9 or 10 hours. So it was a lot, dude. Like I've ridden 25 miles on a mountain bike before, and it's you pedal and then you coast, and you pedal and then you coast, and I didn't get any of that. So it was strenuous, but I'm glad I completed it because I'll probably never do it again. But it's off the bucket list now.
You did that by yourself?
Yeah, solo. DIY, man. I thought this is great. I'm just going to go. Because my grandpa and I had always wanted to do it together, and he passed away when I was like 13. So it was one of those kind of like cathartic moments where it's like, man, I need to do this. This isn't I want to, I need to do this. So yeah, knocked it out, got done, was in all kinds of pain when I got in the car at the finish line, man, put the bike on the rack. But yeah, it was cool to do it, you know, and see, one, a lot of my home state, and two, just kind of complete something my grandpa and I had always dreamed of.
Oh, yeah, that's super cool stuff. Yeah, I mean, out here on the West Coast, it's all hills. So it's like you said, you pedal up, you coast down, you pedal up, you coast down. Yeah, doing that on limestone, yeah, it's brutal. A brutal ride, but I'm sure you did it. Love that you did it there. But yeah, I mean, to maybe swing things onto the hockey side, obviously your career kind of started back in, at least from a professional standpoint, back in 2002, drafted in the 6th round, 172nd overall by the Predators. Ended up with 14 years of pro hockey under your belt. If we missed someone here, let us know. But I think from an NHL standpoint, we got the Lightning, Devils, Jackets, Yotes, Stars, Senators, and Flyers, if I got everyone there.
Was that
seven? Played for 7, but also dressed games for the Panthers and the Canucks.
Okay.
So I got the NHL record. It's me, Sean Burke, and Ron Tugnut.
Nice.
Teams that people, like actual jerseys worn in the NHL. Now, those guys all played for all 9 teams. I played for 7 of them. And they both probably combined played 2,000 games to my 3 dozen. But I'm right there with them, man.
At the end of the day, that's all that matters, right? So
I got the pay stubs to prove it.
There you go. But yeah, I think from there, obviously jump into, obviously getting started at the beginning there, getting drafted and whatnot, do you have any idea, when you were going or who you were going to, or, were there any relationships kind of built up prior to that, with the Predators or anything along those lines?
Yeah, kind of surprisingly, it was the team that I thought I had the best chance with. I had spoken to Nashville before the draft. It was the only team I spoke one-on-one with. They came in to see me play when I was in college at St. Lawrence University. And this was freshman year, and I was playing against David Leneveux on the other side for Cornell, and we were the 1-2 college-ranked goaltenders. Mm-hmm. And so there was a decent amount of people there, I'm sure. But after the game, they didn't want to talk to the highly ranked kid in Leneveux. They wanted to talk to me. So that was really cool. It was the first time I ever met Mitch Korn. This was 2000, probably, I don't know if it was 2001 or 2 when I met him proper before that. But yeah, I was interviewed by them in the room, and I went to Toronto for the draft and thought that probably somewhere between 4th and 6th round seemed likely. There's always a run of goaltenders somewhere in that time frame, like 5th, 6th round especially, like they start to go. And we started to get to the 6th round, and I'm thinking, okay, a couple goalies have gone, and Nashville comes up, and I kind of had this like premonition. I'm like, man, I think this could happen here. And sure enough, like announce a name, go down to the table, take the crappy pictures from 2002 and go meet everybody and go to a rookie camp a couple of weeks later in Nashville, which was awesome because I could drive to it being a St. Louisan. So
absolutely.
It made me very popular there. Everybody wanted to ride, so I'm carting around like, Dan Hamhuis and Shea Weber and Klein and, Suter and all, like Upshaw and Tutu. Like we had so many good players.
Oh yeah.
And I did 4 development camps or rookie camps with them. And I never signed. So it gave me that first taste, but I didn't have any expectations even at that point. It was just amazing to be drafted.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. No, for sure. It's exciting stuff, no doubt. And from there, obviously, it looks like, you ended up back into the ECHL, AHL 0506, bounced around, in there for a couple of years. And then 0809 had your first taste there with the Lightning. How'd that go? I guess, first game, what were the nerves like? How did it feel getting up there kind of grinding through everything at that point?
I didn't have time to think about it. I got tossed into a game midway through in Long Island, and it was a huge snowstorm. There might have been 7,000 people in the Coliseum, and we probably had 9,000 in Hershey a couple nights before in the American League. So I wasn't really like overwhelmed by the NHL aspect.
Yeah.
In terms of the atmosphere, it was still going on the ice though against Billy Guerin and other players that you recognize very quickly. And just looking up and seeing the Stanley Cup banners, and it's a different level. But I got thrown in midway through. I mean, Rick Tocchet was the coach at the Lightning at the time. And I look, and you back up in the corner in Long Island, and he's waving over the crowd because Kari Ramo allowed 3 quick ones. And I'm like, this is the first NHL game I've ever dressed. I've never played a preseason game. I was never on an NHL contract until 2 days before. And I'm like, oh, fuck, here we go. I'm going in.
Yeah.
And that was it, man. I went in. I think I went 11 for 11, handled the puck a few times, made some passes. And I was like, man, I can do this, And then the next night was in Pittsburgh, and that was my first start. So it was back to back. And man, we were doing great until the third period. We were up 3-0. I'm standing on my head. And then 3 goals go in the third, and we lose in overtime. Malkin took over. And Gary Roberts kind of ruined that. He sucker punched Matt Cook and took a double minor, and they scored twice, I think, on that power play. So it was a welcome to the NHL moment, but it was pretty cool. Like I said, I really didn't have time to think about it, and I just started to play games and, playing against obviously good players. Ovechkin in the Capitals 2 or 3 times that year. He did the hot stick on me. Like I was that guy.
Yeah.
That's how teammates would eventually find out later. And they're like, that was you? And I'm like, yeah, that was me. That's my claim to fame. Ovi did the hot stick on me.
That's how it goes. And then I think on top of that, I think shortly after you got called, maybe not shortly after that, but I think your first one ended up being a shutout, right?
Yeah, it was. It was the first start at home. So my parents were there, girlfriend, now wife at the time. And yeah, my dad came running down from the stands, and it was right there when I got off the ice. It was a 1-0 shutout. Jan Dani was a goalie at the other end. It was incredible, man. First win was a shutout. It was all downhill from there, but I never had another one. But it's pretty unbelievable, man. Just to have that. And one of the referees was Don Koharski, Don Koharski lived in St. Louis when I was growing up. I played with his son, Jamie, who was a referee for years in the American League, the ECHL. And so Don coached me. And here he is now refereeing my NHL start. Well, he called 2 of the most frivolous minors on the Islanders in the last 5 minutes. And I'm thinking I'm scot-free, man. This is going to happen. And 10 seconds left, our guys are snapping it around and they blow it at the blue line. And here comes Okposo out of the box. This is when he was still big time player coming in the league. And I stopped a breakaway with 7 seconds left. He shot high blocker side. I made the save. Never forget it. But it was oh God, here we go. This can't be happening. Guys, why didn't you just hang on to the puck for the next 10 seconds? But yeah, so thanks to Don Koharski. That was a really cool moment. And, it's funny how all that stuff just kind of comes full circle.
Yeah, that's solid.
Rock star shit right there, honestly.
It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
So Jansen made a comment about how important it was to perform in front of his friends and his family and how he kind of fed off that energy. And as you mentioned, this was that first win was a shutout at home. Did you have any family in the stands? Was that a big moment for you as far as that goes? Or was this just something that you were performing for the fans?
Well, with having my parents there for sure. And obviously my girlfriend was just, important too. But for my dad, especially, he's not a guy who shows a lot of emotion, really. He's just a really passive, humble type of guy. And, he comes running down from the stands to give me a hug as I'm coming off the ice. And, afterwards, handed me a letter from my grandpa that he kept all these years that I didn't know about. And there was a lot of emotional stuff going on that day that I don't think a lot of players get, and they don't have, because they've a lot of today's generation shows up and they think they're going to play in the NHL and they make the NHL. It's like, yeah, at 16, I was a stud. I knew this was going to happen. Well, we didn't know how to do that from St. Louis. Chance and I, neither Cam and I, nobody made it. Cam was the first guy ever out of St. Louis to make it, ever. And he did it, a year or 2 years before I did. And I remember calling him when I was playing the ECHL. I was in Vegas. I remember calling him and going, man, you did it, dude. Like you knocked the door down, man. And it was amazing that it started to roll like that. But kids take it kind of for granted now, right? Like back then it was a huge deal, and it still is. It should be for everybody, man. Like playing in the NHL it's an absolute privilege. But sometimes it gets lost on kids that just have always been that good and expected it, and that wasn't me. It just kind of, things kept progressing, and there I was in the national somehow.
So not including any AHL or ECHL stints, you played for the Tampa Bay Lightning, the Devils, Blue Jackets, Coyotes, Dallas Stars, Ottawa Senators, Flyers, as we mentioned in the beginning of this interview. Out of all of the organizations, we'll even go with the minors and the NHL. Who do you think was your favorite organization to play for, and why?
Man, that's a great question, because I definitely had some great organizations and some really shitty ones. I would say the best, I just always look fondly at the year I spent in the Dallas organization. I was in Austin, Texas for most of it. I was with Dallas for a month and a half at the end, which was kind of typical in my career. Later, by the midpoint of my career, I'd get called up for a month and a half out of the season and maybe get a game or 3 or 4. That's just how it was for me. But I had to earn those opportunities by outplaying my goalie partners, to earn the privilege to sit on the bench in the NHL, which people forget, you're just getting called up to be a button. No, I earned that. And I feel comfortable saying that now, but in the moment, the humble hockey guy, like, I was lucky enough. It's like, it's like when McDavid says, if I'm lucky enough to make the Olympic team.
Yeah. Right.
Really, Connor? Like, I think you might just be able to be honest here for once and not be that hockey guy. But in any case, I just, I love that year in Dallas. It was a fun organization. Jim Nill was top-notch general manager. We went to the Calder Cup finals in the American League, and Austin was one of my absolute favorite places. Portland, Maine, and Austin, Texas were like my 2 favorite cities where I spent most of my time. That year was amazing. Really, really treated well. Columbus treated me fantastic as well. But a lot of these were just 1-year stops, and that's kind of been the bummer of my career is I never really got to lay roots anywhere and spend 2, 3, 4 years because I wasn't an entry-level guy. I wasn't a bonus baby. No one was invested in me from a team standpoint. I was always kind of the fill-in veteran, older guy, 1-year layover goaltender. So yeah, Dallas for sure. Columbus. Yeah, man, like I had some good experiences for sure, but those 2 really stand out.
Oh yeah, that's solid. I was trying to look it up. I don't think I just pop it up on my side, but from that Calder Cup final, were you starting for that? I know it went 7 games. Okay, yeah. How'd you handle that?
Well, I did it the year before, so I did 2 years in a row.
Right.
2017, 2018, I guess it was. So 2017 is with Syracuse, and I'd been traded for at the deadline by Julien Brisebois, who was then the general manager of the Crunch. And some people may know his name. He's only won 2 Stanley Cups since with the Tampa Bay Lightning. But he traded for me at the deadline, which is bold, man. Like that doesn't work often for goalies. And it took a bit for me to adjust. And then we went on a run and lost in Game 6 to Grand Rapids. And that was the biggest stage I'd played on. You play in NHL games, it's great, but like playoffs, it doesn't matter the league. You can talk to guys that play in the ECHL that when they make it to the finals, it's a huge deal. Oh, yeah. AHL, it's a huge deal. You're playing for something. So I had that experience of playing the year before. And then Game 7, though, like, dude, we just kept somehow winning. Like, we were not the best team in Texas, like on paper, I think, but we were just having so much fun and we got along so well and we all played for each other that it was one of those classic cases of punching above your weight, and like, I'm comfortable in saying I was playing out of my head. I know I was. Like, you can go back and look at the stats and some of those, like 244 shutouts in a row, right? Like there was a lot going on there.
Yeah, right.
But even though I was playing that well, you still have to score goals, right? Like a goalie cannot steal an entire playoff until you get to game 7. And games that I did not steal by a long shot, right? I mean, I allowed them as a field goal in Rockford one game, right? And we come back and end up winning. We just kept scoring. We kept finding ways. And I think like Travis Moore and Justin Dowling, and then the young guys, Rope Hintz especially, who's made his name in Dallas, was huge for us in those playoffs. That was like his coming out party that everybody realized this guy's for real. Just on down the list, that team, and it's led to a lot of good things for people down the road. We had great leadership. God, we had fun. We had barbecues and played sand volleyball after every round that we won. One guy's wife blew her knee out. We were playing so hard. It was just, it was awesome, So yeah, that game 7 was just, it's almost like this sense of relief when you play a game 7.
Yeah.
And I've played 4 or 5 of them, and it's like, man, this is it. Like you're either going to win or you go home. So you kind of almost have this peacefulness going into it, which is really odd because it's supposed to be this ultimate sensory overload. And it's not. It's almost like, all right, let's do this. We'll see what happens. You know?
100%.
It sucks to lose though. Game 7 for a championship, against a team that has 3 times the payroll, and you almost knock them off. Like, we felt pretty good that we got to where we did, but you always want to win the prize at the end.
What's up, everyone? Tyler Cash here from the Fourth Line Goon Hockey Podcast, interrupting this week's episode to talk about one of our amazing sponsors, Schlafly Brewing Company. A staple in the St. Louis community for 30 years now, they have 4 different brew pubs located all over the metropolitan area, including downtown St. Louis, Maplewood, St. Charles, and most recently they opened a location in Highland, Illinois. From stouts and porters to lagers and IPAs, when it comes to delicious and refreshing beers, Schlafly has got you covered. Their Just a Bit Hazy IPA is an easy drinking IPA that will hit stores this February alongside their highly sought after Tasmanian IPA. If you know me, you know I enjoy a good dark beer, and their coffee stout is among some of the best I've ever tasted. If you're looking for something just a bit lighter though, their white lager is crisp and clean, as it's unfiltered and perfect for the domestic beer drinker that would like to transition to drinking more craft beers. You can download the Schlafly app on your phone to help locate and purchase their products all across the country. Be sure and follow them on Facebook and Instagram for constant new updates and information on all of their products. Schlafly beers are delicious and refreshing. Check them out. You won't regret it.
Obviously, from St. Louis, I'm assuming probably a Blues fan at heart. From there, I know you spent a couple of years kind of before everything, down with the Springfield Junior Blues. How was that experience for you?
Oh boy, we were terrible. The first year we had a coach that, I probably don't want to ever see him again. Now looking back on it, especially the things that took place, all the gross things that junior hockey is and was, and has been buried about endlessly in the media the last couple of years, is exactly what Springfield, Illinois was like when I was there my first year. And being a 16-year-old when everybody else was 2 years older than you, you need help, you need friends, you need guidance. And that's not what happened there. The good part to that is I had incredible billets. My billet family was amazing. I had a really good roommate. My goalie partner was fantastic. But man, there's just a lot of dickheads on that team, and they were so caught up in the junior culture. And somebody like me that has always kind of fought against that and tried to buck that trend, you almost get caught up in it back then. Right. And you think it's normal. And looking back, I'm glad it's over.
Sure.
Our coach got fired midway through the year for bag skating us after a game without water. And we're all out past curfew.
Yeah, right.
In front of our friends' family, we're 16, 17, 18 years old. So the first year, bad coach, bad guy, some bad teammates. And then the second year, pretty entertaining, more fun, but we just sucked. We were so bad. Like, we just could not win. And, I got through it basically. And it got me a chance that I got to play a ton of hockey, which was the saving grace as a goalie. And that's what got me the chance to be seen by St. Lawrence and get my foot in the door there and take some other college visits, but ultimately end up, where I wanted to, which was Division I college hockey.
Definitely. Yeah. So it sounds like one of those situations where it's like, yeah, I know we suck, but I'm going to go out here and have some fun with it and just roll the punches type of a thing is what it sounded like.
Yeah, and especially as a goalie, you can't do anything about it.
Yeah,
right. When you're facing 72 shots in Sault Ste. Marie and you lose 9-0, and you're shorthanded for 18 minutes of the third period and you face 40 in the third, your numbers are going to look like a credit card at the end of the year, and
those are some Bush League numbers right there.
Yeah. So I was just thankful that anybody saw through that. And I was also one of the only 16-year-old goalies playing junior hockey, at the NA level or the USHL. It was the 2 US goaltenders and myself, and that was it. So it, at least my name was out there and it got me where I needed to, but yeah, it's a pretty wild experience in retrospect, especially just how hockey was back then. I'm happy it's in a better place now than it was then.
So Tommy briefly mentioned that you grew up in St. Louis. We're all St. Louis boys, by the way. I don't know if you knew that. Me and Tommy grew up in St. Louis as well. And he mentioned, Blues fan at heart potentially. Growing up
as
in the area,
kid, I was for sure.
Okay, yeah. So, where did you play as a kid? Were you like Patty Maroon? Were you a rink rat? Hopping around on playing roller, or were you always strictly ice? Did you always play in net?
I started ice. That's what I liked. I played derby a couple of years, and it was so unorganized and fly by night that I just had no desire to ever do it again.
Yeah.
So that wasn't my thing at all. But yeah, I started on the ice at 5 at Kirkwood. My grandpa was like one of the first rink managers and a founding father of hockey in St. Louis. An inaugural class of the St. Louis Hockey Hall of Fame as a builder and as a referee and linesman around town. So that's kind of where it started from. And grew up in Manchester, still live in Manchester, but that was Kirkwood's district. So played there and, played all along growing up. I played for the Pee Wee Quebec team and went to Quebec when I was 13. And then I had to spend 1 year at Creve Coeur being coached by Don Koharski because Kirkwood had 2 returning Bantam AA goalies who were not very good. We'll just leave it at that. But I got left out because I wasn't returning. So I went to Creve Coeur for a year and then kind of came time to decide, am I going to go play junior B or am I going to go play AAA? And this is when I was 15. And we decided, okay, we're going to do 1 year AAA. This was expensive, man. It was so expensive. I made the AAA team when I was 10 and my parents went, no, we're not spending that. And I was like, all right, that's fine. So played 1 year AAA and just ran the table in awards at tournaments. And then we went and won Kibit and Kamloops, which is the biggest Bantam tournament.
Yeah.
And that's where it all turned, man. I played 2 years at Parkway South, freshman, sophomore year at varsity at Parkway South too. So yeah, I was a goalie by age 8, I guess. My dad and grandpa had the foresight to make me learn how to be a hockey player for 2 years first. And I'm thankful that they did.
Awesome. So, getting a sense of your background and growing up, my question for you was, who is your all-time favorite goaltender? And I feel like that's a question that starts brewing as a young kid, right? It's what gets you in love with the sport. It's what gets you in love with a potential team. Is there a goaltender that screams to you that you modeled maybe your style and your play after?
I guess the easiest answer is whoever was in net for the Blues. Whether it was Joseph or Millen or Pat Jablonski or Grant Fuhrer, Brent Johnson even, all these guys were who I really looked up to. Ron Hextall, I saw him score a goal as a kid, and that's what I wanted to do. So there's somebody outside the box when I was really young. And then when I scored in junior hockey, it was like, this is holy shit, it actually happened, right? It was the first in the history of North American League. And then I got to interview Hextall this past summer and talk about it. It was unbelievable to have that experience. But it really was truly whoever was in net for the Blues. That was who my hero was at the time. But man, Belfour, Hasek, it was everybody, and as I got older, Kolzig and then Brodeur, and there was kind of a theme of anybody who was really good at handling the puck is who I liked. Turco, DiPietro when he was the other way, and I'd watch him play for the U.S. development team and then on through college. And there's a lot of those guys that filled that void for me. I mean, even Ryan Miller is a guy that I really looked up to. I saw him play for the Sault Ste. Marie Indians in the North American Hockey League against the St. Louis Sting. And then he goes to Michigan State. He's lights out. And then NHL. And then, I get to play against him and speak to him and like just cool stuff like that. People you look up to. But the short answer, Matt, is just whoever was in net for the Blues and whoever had the coolest looking equipment for the other team when they came in.
And the Blues had so many great goaltenders too. That's not a hard it's a hard question to answer because Curtis Joseph also had the awesome mask. Like his gear was just always so rad, and then obviously Grant Fuhr is a stud as well.
Joseph, I just liked his original mask, the one with the trumpets on the side. And I wasn't into the dog mask, which became his calling card. And it was cool for what it was. Like it was his thing, but I just loved the big, bold, two-dimensional designs. And his initial Blues mask that was made by Greg Harrison was perfect, just perfect. And then like the Heaton Pro 90Z pads and then the Louisville pads, like he just had cool gear. He had swag, he had style. He's just somebody that, and I found out that, they went to Wisconsin, he played college, and that all kind of set things in motion for me to think, I think that's where I'd like to end up. Because the NHL didn't seem like possible. I thought, maybe if I could get to college hockey, that would be really cool. And, lo and behold, I went in on time at 18 and did just that. So it's a big credit and thank you to a lot of those goalies that I looked up to.
Yeah, no doubt. I was going to say it's probably best, being if your favorite goalie being the Blue at the time growing up, that you weren't growing up during that 02-03 season. We had 7 or 8, like Brent Johnson, Brathwaite, Osgood, like all in the same year, like back to back with the injuries we had. But hey, either way, I totally get that growing up hometown. That's kind of who you're going for. And then obviously, Hasek and all those guys. How do you not love them? So from there, your career obviously kind of wrapped up there, 2018, 2019, the Phillies organization, or not Phillies, Flyers organization, excuse me, wrong sport.
Same city.
Yeah, same city, wrong sport. So Flyers organization, I know you played with the Phantoms as well. Kind of tell us about that final season a bit and even more importantly, kind of that last game you had too.
Well, here's what people don't know is that going into that year, it was going to be my last year. I was almost dead certain on that. It was going to take some incredibly wild scenario and circumstance for me to play another year after. I'd had a couple opportunities in media pop up that I'd interviewed and auditioned for the summer before that last one, and ultimately decided I wanted to play one more year. I'm coming off playing in the finals 2 years in a row. My daughter's a little older. Like she's going to be 3 years old in the season. Maybe she can remember me as a hockey player. And that was kind of a driving force for it. Sure. And so, I signed with Ottawa, which I did reluctantly because I'd already been kind of bit by them once in my career. And they told me all the right things in the week leading up to free agency when there used to be an interview period. And, Pierre Dorion told me, yep, you'll get the call-ups. We have any short call-ups, you'll get them. But we need you in Belleville. We need you to help develop our young goaltenders. We have quite a few of them. We trust you for that. And, well, it lasted a month in Belleville before I got called up. And I was gone for 2 months, which I was in the NHL, so it's great. Yeah. But my family, it was a huge commitment for us to go to Canada with 2 kids that are going to be one in school, a dog, everything. Like we'd never been there before.
Right.
So we show up and within a month I'm gone. Like I don't see him for 2 months. Right. And then they show up in Ottawa and we're supposed to have, a week together in the hotel. The team knows they've gotten the hotel for us. And the team had already not given me any indication to get a place to live. So I knew I was a dead man walking this whole time. Yeah. At some point I was going to get sent out. Sure. It's been 2 months and they haven't, the CBA says they have to tell you whether you're going to get a place to live or not. They didn't even do that. So I knew I was definitely on a limb here. Yeah. If they're not following the letter of the law. And so I was like, all right, well, we'll just live in the hotel for a bit. At least we can be together. And either they'll eventually come to Ottawa or I'll get sent out. Well, they were there for a day and a half and I got traded to the team we were playing that night, which was Vancouver Canucks. And so I took morning skate with the Ottawa Senators, got called out at lunchtime to the assistant GM's office, who I'd met him once. And he goes, well, Mike, just wanted to let you know we've traded you to Vancouver. I'm like, what are you talking about? Are you serious? Yeah, we didn't know how you'd react. How do you think I was going to react? I haven't seen my family in 2 months, and they just showed up, man. And like, you just threw my life in a blender again,
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, we know, but it's a business. I'm like, you don't have to tell me it's a business. I've been in pro hockey for 13 years. You've been in it for 2 months, which was kind of my own hubris. But like, in any case, that's what happened. I got traded to the team down the hall. Canadian television had me carrying a trash bag down the hallway to the Vancouver Canucks dressing room. I looked like a kaleidoscope on the ice wearing black and red gear and a Vancouver jersey. I back up against my old team. We fly to Montreal. I back up again. We fly to Toronto. And then I'm on waivers because they're going to send me to Utica. Their plan was to call up Thatcher Demko. It was for me to go to Utica, be their third guy. And at this point, I'm kind of like wrapping my head around, okay, it's going to be okay. We're going to get the family to Utica. We'll get this figured out. Well, I get claimed on waivers by Philly. So I go from Ottawa to Montreal to Toronto to Philly in like 3.5 days and 3 teams. And so there I am in Philly, and I'm a Philadelphia Flyer, January 4th, I guess. And basically it took another 2 months. My family was still in Canada, kid in school, kindergarten up there, before we got to trade deadline. And we finally realized, okay, I'm going to be in Lehigh Valley. This is where I'm going to end up, because I didn't know where I was going to go. Like when I went back on waivers, trade deadline, all those things, I was on the goalie carousel. I didn't know what was going to happen. And so thankfully I got to stay in Philly organization. They were amazing to me and to my family. Like they knew I was in a pretty shitty situation, and I show up and I've got 2 jerseys for my kids in my stall. Like no team had ever done that for me, ever.
That's awesome.
And that means a lot when you're going through that. So got through that, finished in Lehigh, and the last game, it was just, at that point I knew it was definitely my last year. After everything we'd gone through, and we finally got the band back together. Like, oh, by the way, our dog went diabetic and nearly died on the move from Belleville to Lehigh Valley. He's alive now. It ended up okay, but it was sketchy for a while. But we get there, and I knew it was the end. And I told the head coach there and the goalie partner, Alex Lyon and Kerry Huffman, I'm like, listen, this is it for me. And if you could just tell me when my last game is going to be, the last start, I'd really appreciate it, because I know my parents would like to come. And obviously my wife, girlfriend, kids, if possible. And there's only one rule. You cannot pull me. I am going to play the entire game no matter what happens. And Kerry Huffman was like, yeah, I would never pull you in your last game. He was really cool about it. But and they gave me the last game of the year in Lehigh Valley, which was like, I didn't expect that, because generally, like, Alex Lyon had been the guy there for 3 years, 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's his game. But they decided to let me play it. And my parents are there, wife, kids, and skate out for warm-ups. I'm kind of taking it in, looking at the kids and taking pictures, and I'm holding it together. I'm doing okay. I think I allowed 2 goals in the first. We were down like 2-0, and I was kind of like, all right, well, I'm playing all right. Just enjoy this.
Yeah.
And I don't know how long into the second, but we scored, I think, midway through the second. And I'm like, okay, well, 2-1. And it gave us some life. And it might have even been late in the second. And then we go out for the third, and we scored right away, and it's 2-2. And I'm like, we're not losing this. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it just came over me that this is not a game that's going to be lost. We are going to win this game. And sure enough, we ended up going to overtime and then a shootout. And I remember skating out for overtime, and you go to the other end, and I looked up, and there's a picture of me at this moment. And I'm looking at my mom standing up, and she's like this, and she's teary-eyed. And I'm just like, and it was like the most peaceful moment of my life on the ice, where it was just like face to face. This is it. I'm so happy you're here. Whatever happens, happens, you know? And I got to tell you, man, I made some saves in OT, and I tracked down a puck. Like, I made a save and sprinted to a puck at like the top of the circle to knock it out of the zone. Like, I wasn't really in my right mind. I was totally playing free. You know what I mean? Like,
sure. Yeah.
And so we go to a shootout, and I stopped all 3 in the shootout.
Beautiful.
Like, all 3, and made the save. So listen, short of winning a Stanley Cup or a championship at any level, just getting off the ice a winner, a first star, all that shit, right? Like my kids are there. Again, my dad's right there when I come off the ice. Family came in the locker room afterwards. My dad was in on the post-game meeting. I called him in. Like it was incredible, man. I couldn't have written a better chapter. And like, when you think about ending a career, there's too many guys that have to be told to stop when it's time, or they don't get a contract, or they get hurt. And
Right. Yeah.
I felt like my career at that time had run its course. I was ready. I loved it. I missed the competition. I don't miss putting the gear on all the time, and I don't miss the nervousness before games that started to get worse as my career got older. Like I didn't need that. I just wanted to end the way I wanted to. And It was perfect. It's hard to believe that it played out like that. But it couldn't have been better.
Listen up, goons. Gotta interrupt the podcast to talk about another one of our amazing sponsors, Shortside Co., a hockey apparel and accessory company. Established in 2020, Shortside is a Minnesota-based company with all 4 owners having a combined 25 years of professional hockey experience. All of their tape is made in the USA, tested and certified by NHL players, including Nate Schmidt. We had him on the podcast, so if you haven't listened to that episode, go back and check it out. He's a beauty. All of their products are created by players, for players. Going shortside is a lifestyle. But why go shortside? Well, scoring goals is their passion. There are many variables that come into play in order to score a goal high on the short side, but it all starts with a perfectly executed tape job. After scoring goals in every league from mites to the NHL, they are confident that their product will be a staple in any locker room. For individuals and organizations looking to join the Shortside community, go to www.goshortside.com. Big Balls Kickball is St. Louis's premier adult kickball league, bringing you the best game in town since 2007. Veteran owned and operated, they strive to bring out the kid in everyone, and they let you let loose and make new friends on that field. Big Balls welcomes players from all walks of life, and they pride themselves on being one of the most inclusive leagues out there. If that's not enough, they also offer Big Balls apparel. That's right, they sell clothing, all that stuff, and it's rad. Me and Tommy have some. We've been rocking them. They go back with the retro designs, back to the 90s, back to your childhood, all of that. So be sure to go and check out Big Balls Kickball at www.stlbigballs.com.
I mean, ending on your own terms. I mean, and especially as epic and beautiful as you just described it. I mean, like you said, you can't write that better. I mean, that's awesome. And you had an organization that had your back, took good care of you, and you didn't know if that was going to happen again. I mean, that's awesome, man. It's great to, as you said, you were playing as if there was no tomorrow, because there was no tomorrow.
Nope.
You were playing for your family. You're playing for your fans. I mean, that's beautiful.
It was cool. I mean, it's kind of like the Dillinger Escape album, or Irony is a Dead Scene. Dillinger Escape Plan album. It's like loyalty is a dead scene. Well, that's the way it is, man. That's business in general. Everything's so cutthroat now, but there is right and wrong ways to do things. And thankfully there are still people in hockey that do things the right way. And you really appreciate it when you get to play for those teams and for those people.
No, I mean, I love that you mentioned Dillinger Escape Plan. And don't act like I'm not going to ask you music questions, because that's coming. But we will wrap up the hockey chapter. My last question with that is that, we've spent a lot of time talking about how much you grinded, jumped from team to team. You said 3 teams in 3.5 days. Is that? Yeah, I mean, madness. So at the end of the day, you're sitting on your couch, you turn on hockey. And I hope you still have a found love for hockey as you did when you started out. Who are you cheering for these days? Like, what's the teams that you are wanting to watch when you sit down in your living room with your family and you put it on the TV?
I'm so agnostic when it comes to teams at this point. Like I have friends on every team. It feels like there's teams I don't want to see succeed. But I kind of circle back to just the teams that I had good experiences with, right? Like when my girls see the Dallas Stars, they remember our Calder Cup run. They remember the same names. They remember their babysitter, Jason Dickinson, who's moved on to Vancouver now. But like, there's intrinsic moments there that really matter. And, you know, my daughter liked Philly from the start because they were orange, right? But they also remembered how good they were to us. And so, I mean, there's still, I watch the Blues and I'm in St. Louis because they're on TV, but I also still have like a draw to the hometown team. It's just that I don't actively root for teams and die by teams anymore. You know, I don't get upset when a team loses. When Vegas lost, when I was working for Vegas the last 2 years, I could care less that they lost. I didn't have a dog in that fight, which, I mean, I think that's different than some people. For me, that's just how it was. You know, I felt that I was supposed to be something of an impartial broadcaster to truly analyze things on a minute level. You have to be impartial, I believe. So that was a little bit different. I mean, would it have been awesome if Vegas won while I was there? Absolutely. But do I sit there and put pom-poms on and cheerlead between games? That doesn't happen very often, you know. It's kind of a different dynamic, I think, when you've played and you don't really have a dog in the fight too. You know, if I'd played for a team for 10 years and came out and did broadcasting or something, or ended up living in that city, I think it'd be very different. But just really because of my career path, it made me, like I say, like very kind of agnostic towards teams where nobody was truly a favorite. I think there is kind of hope in the household though, that maybe my kids will eventually gravitate to just one team. So it makes it easier to, like, you know, get them a hat or a shirt, or, you know, if they go to school with their classmates, you know, in St. Louis or wherever else, like one team, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But
has that started yet? Have you seen them gravitate towards a team at all?
They're all over the map, and they don't sit down and truly watch hockey that often. But I also haven't been here for a lot of it, right? I've been in Las Vegas calling games for the Golden Knights and haven't had a chance to watch a lot of hockey with them. So, you know, this year, I think having the family's going to live together this year. So it's like, I would definitely expect to be able to watch more hockey with them. My oldest daughter plays, she's 8 years old. So I think it'll get there, but it's on them, man. If they don't want to, I'm not going to force them or pressure them in any way. I want them to discover the game organically.
Yeah.
Like, I want them to fall in love with it the way I did, because I just loved it. I wanted to go downstairs and shoot pucks. I wanted to watch every goalie in warmups from the opposite team. I wanted to draw their masks. I wanted to get every equipment catalog under the sun and memorize everything about sticks and goalie equipment. And that's my hope for them. And whether it's hockey or whether they find something else that they're that passionate about, I don't care what it is. I just want to see them be passionate about something and really love it and really learn to enjoy it.
Well, Mike, you're quite the cook, or at least I can tell from your social media. I mean, I've never tasted your cuisine.
Tonight's dinner sucked. I tried to make a chicken parm, it was terrible, but go figure.
But it seems that you found a passion in cooking as well. What do you think is your favorite meal to prepare? What do you think your specialty is when you have people over to the house? You got dinner, maybe some wine going. What are you going to cook for them?
It's hard. It kind of like I'll try to cater to friends when they come. Like, if I know they're super into something, it makes it a little bit easier for me to do totally truthful. I experiment a lot when friends come over because I can do things in like big format version of it. But like the easiest standby, I love to make pizza. I love to make Detroit style pizza. It's so easy. I mean, I'm kind of extra, so I go a little overboard at making the sauce and do everything else. But like, if you want a crowd pleaser, that's like, you do it in advance, they show up, you put it in the oven, you wheel it out. It's hard to beat, you know? True. And I thought it's so simple, but like, you can make pizza as easy or as hard as you want. And I make the sauce, I make the crust. Like, the only thing I don't do is make the cheese for the most part, right? Or case the pepperoni. So
yeah, right.
I love doing pizza for people. I love barbecuing, man. I love doing ribs. I love anything that I can smoke with on my grill. Those are kind of more big format things that are super easy when people are coming over, same thing. But I really love even simple stuff like just doing different types of tacos or hand foods, you know, like instead of formal, make it fun. Like, make 2 or 3 different types of taco fillings, put it in a crock pot or 2 and let people go hog wild, you know, make some watermelon margaritas or regular margaritas.
Nice.
Like,
yeah.
I like that kind of festive interactive stuff more than I like super plated dinners, you know?
Nice. Yeah. I mean, definitely a few tricks up your sleeve, it sounds like there, but keep it simple. Keep it happy for everyone. Crowd pleaser. That's nice stuff. So from a movie standpoint, straightforward question, best hockey movie of all time.
Slapshot.
Good answer. Okay.
You only need one word.
Yeah. Good answer.
Wow. Okay. We're 2 for 2 on that. Slapshot it is. I mean, there's so many different options though, right? Like, I mean, I feel like that's the go-to, but I mean, it's hard not to mention Miracle. Or I love Mystery Alaska. I feel like people don't talk about that movie enough. Like, I thought that
Mystery is really good. It's funny. I mean, if you take it for what it is, I thought it was great. I mean, I still quote, like, I'll be on the bench sometimes when I was playing and I'll look at our equipment guy. Well, not playing, when I was backing up, which I did a lot of, but like if the national anthem was really slow at the end of it, I'd always turn around to the equipment guy and I'd be like, that was the Little Richard version. Because if you remember in Mystery Alaska, he takes forever because they're trying to cool down the Rangers, right? And I'm like, it's the Little Richard version. And it always gets a laugh. It's like one of those punchlines you store inside when you can utilize it. So I like Mystery Alaska. It's, that was a fun movie. Youngblood's awesome. The first Mighty Ducks for my age group, I'm 38. So like the first Mighty Ducks I saw in the theater. Yeah. It was cool. It was fun. It was our age group. I mean, I know Madonna and McRae are still getting royalties off it, which is hysterical. So there's been some good ones. Second and third Mighty Ducks, no thanks. But yeah, man, like Slapshot's just untouchable. It really is. Everything about it, start to finish.
So, going in that same direction, you mentioned earlier, you quoted the Dillinger Escape Plan, and I know you and I have spoken at lengths about metal music and your passion for that. I see that. What are some of your favorite bands? I have in the question, what are your favorite artists and bands? But I know that you gravitate more towards the heavier music. If you're going for like a long bike ride, so you say, what albums are you throwing on?
I had Opeth, Blackwater Park going through my head the whole trip. In the middle of summer, 90-degree weather, this really super, like cold, dark, damp fall winter album, Blackwater Park. Whatever reason that was going through my head. I have no idea why. It's funny because I don't even like Opeth anymore from what they've transitioned into being just a straight up prog band. If I could take them when they were heavy and I loved Opeth. Like I love Blackwater Park. But Amon Amarth has always kind of been my go-to in these last couple of years. I love them. That type of Viking Swedish death metal, just, I don't know, man, that it's all derivative of basically a heavier, faster Iron Maiden to me in a lot of ways, which, I came to appreciate Maiden later in life, but learning that lineage of them to In Flames, Dark Tranquillity, Arch Enemy, and then that kind of carried over into the bands like, At the Gates in there too, but that carried over into bands like Shadows Fall and Killswitch Engage and God Forbid and Darkest Hour. And like, it all had this progression and lineage. And then I kind of got super into black metal, like Dissection and Immortal. And like that whole scene was pretty obviously weird. And I don't align with a lot of the values of what they had in the 90s in any way, but just the music is like, I don't know why, man. I don't like anything easy in life, right? Like it's fast, it's driving, it's hard to play. It's just got this whole vibe to it, right? Like when you put on a Dissection album, it sounds like it's freezing cold. And I don't know how you quantify that. Like, and if you listen to Immortal, it sounds like it's freezing cold.
Right.
And I don't know why, but that's the way it is. And I don't know why I'm drawn to it. I don't know why I like these Swedish death metal bands that are just, it's the guitar work. I know that's why. But so many people are just like vocal driven in how they listen and consume music. And I take the vocals as part of the band. It's part of the sound. And the vocals to me are more of the vibe of the music. If it's super heavy music, I don't want to hear somebody crooning over it. Like that's just not how it works for me. Like if it's heavy, it needs some heavy vocals, or fast vocals at least. And I've never been really big on that aspect, whereas most people, like general public, just listens. Oh, she's got a beautiful voice. That's great. There's a million people out there. I'm not impressed by somebody that can sing. I'm not. I'm impressed by somebody that can pick up an axe and absolutely go up and down a fretboard and do it with, I mean, not just fast, but like have some groove to it, dude. You know what I mean? Like there's a reason why Pantera was a gateway for a lot of people, because there's so much groove to it.
Right.
Like, you hear a couple of their opening riffs and it's just bang, your head's going. You can't help yourself. And that's kind of where my whole basis of music was. Like I had needed a riff, I needed a groove, I needed my head to go, and the vocals kind of followed suit on that. And yeah, like, dude, if you can't tell, being able to download illegally in college was the best thing that ever happened, because it led to me probably buying, I don't know, 300 CDs, right? Because I found all these bands. So that was eye-opening when you could just, here comes the music, you know. And I found all these bands once I got to college. Fear Factory was a huge gateway for me too. That was another band. Like I remember going to Ozfest 97 or 8 and Slayer and Fear Factory on it. And like, we didn't know what to expect. We'd never seen a show like that. And Fear Factory's pit was insane. It was on the concrete at Riverport. And I'm just looking at this going, and then, you know, Slayer gets on stage and people are throwing turf up in the bleacher, like just mayhem. So when I go to shows, I stand in front of the soundboard.
Yeah,
and that's my safe place.
You got to stand back now, for sure.
Yes,
for sure. Yeah,
I was never a railing guy though. I like being in front of the soundboard because I get the best sound. Like I'm not there to rage. I'm not there to get in a pit. I'm there to listen to the music and watch the musicians. So that's my safe spot, is right in front of the soundboard.
So what you're saying is you're not the shirtless guy with the tribal tats with like the beer in your hand, you know, punching a bunch of little kids in the head, right?
No chance, dude. Like, and I went through that awkward phase of where hardcore and metal were kind of like clashing, where you get the hardcore kids doing the hardcore dance, they'd be, you know, picking up change and windmill and kicks, and like then you get these like big metal dudes that would come in and just clean house, and it just, that era from like 2000 to 2004 was weird, because like you get a band like Unearth or Shadows Fall that truly bridged the gap between the two, and some of those fans didn't, it's almost like they didn't know what to do.
Yeah, they didn't get it. They didn't get it.
Yeah, in a lot of ways they did it. And those bands were so rad, dude. Like like Brian Ferrer, the singer of Shadows Fall, lives in St. Louis and is a friend now. Like it's the craziest thing.
I didn't know that. I had no idea.
That's wild.
Yeah, but like I remember talking about it one time. He's like, yeah, man, sometimes we didn't know what was going to happen at shows. Like Lamb of God, early 2000s, like they kind of came from a hardcore background and gravitated towards metal, and it was the same thing. They had their old school fans and new school, and it just, you know, you never knew what you were going to see.
Yeah, you mentioned Darkest Hour earlier, and Undoing Ruin is like one of my favorite metalcore albums. Yeah. And it's, you know, that term metalcore came together out of confusion, I feel like, because you got these bands that are we're just playing metal, and then you got other bands like, we're just a hardcore band, but it's like the fans are kind of what brought it together. You know, as you said, it's like two clashing genres, and people don't look at it that way, because from the outside looking in, if you're just into country, pop, R&B, you don't really know about this like blend of heavy music.
Well, it's just all these subgenres that people are creating. You know, it's like my buddy and I remember when we first listened to Mastodon in like 2004, and we started calling it shipwreck metal. You know, because it was a pure joke and play on what people were doing. You know, like, oh, that's blackened thrash. Okay, it's blackened thrash. All right, well, this is mellow death. I'm like, it's heavy metal, guys. It's metal. Like, if the guitars are loud and the heads are banging, like, it's metal. Like, if they solo, we'll call it metal. Simple as that. And if they don't solo, then you can call it core. You can do whatever you want. That was my two. That was like my line. You know what I mean?
I guess the breakdown is really what, like, if you break down the riff, then all of a sudden you're not metal or hardcore. You're like a combination of the two. But if you really think about it, like that started really early on with like Metallica and like even Sepultura, and these bands were kind of initiating this like just open chord groove structure. Or Pantera. It's like no one called Pantera. Yeah, no one called Pantera metalcore. It was just metal, you know?
Yeah, I mean, Slayer came out of hardcore, you know, that the Undisputed Attitude, I guess, right? That's their cover album. I think it was all old hardcore bands. So that stuff's always crossed over, but when people get so into a specific genre, it's almost like they won't allow themselves to branch out. It's like, I'm Italian, I'm only going to eat Italian food. It's like, man, like Asian culture and food is really good. You should try that. No, I want chicken parm and I want pasta. Like,
well, a lot of that has to do with age. And I always said that punk rock is with the youth and it evolves over time. And it's like, I remember distinctly being at a bar one time, and I think I was playing like, man, it might've been like something like Newfound Glory or Less Than Jake, like something, or maybe even somewhere in that realm. And the guy was like, I thought you were going to play some punk rock. And, older dude, tattooed leather. And I was like, this is punk rock. And he's like, this ain't punk rock. And I didn't know what he was talking about until years later, and then you got these other bands coming out. Now we got Machine Gun Kelly and all these up and coming, like influential rap, pop punk vibe. And I'm like, this ain't punk rock. And I'm like, yes, it is. Yes, it is. I'm just old. Right? I'm just old.
I mean, he thought you should be listening to the Sex Pistols.
Right.
And Blink-182 and Newfound Glory weren't the Sex Pistols.
Nope.
They weren't the Ramones, and we all go back to that. And I mean, I have a real appreciation for old music. I like old metal. I love Black Sabbath. I love Maiden. I like some older Priest, but like modern metal is where my heart is. It really is. The production value, the heaviness, the just all that is next level compared to the old stuff that to me can still sound dated at times. And it's rare that I find an album like from way back that I listen to, especially like I grew up on grunge, and I listen to like Nirvana and I'm just like, oh, I was that into this. And it's still kind of okay. But then I listen to Smashing Pumpkins and I'm like, man, this stuff still sounds awesome.
Yeah.
Like this band still kills, like Siamese Dream and Melancholy, like those albums were so good. And even, there's even some Alice in Chains that's still kind of the same way. Like some of their stuff sounds a little dated, but like their later era things they sound fresh, and that's to me like really those timeless bands are the ones that you can listen to and be like, yeah, this was pretty special what was going on.
Well, Mike, we won't keep you much longer. Normally we wrap up. Just kind of giving us up to date what you're up to, what you're doing these days. I know you have a podcast that you post, which I enjoy. I enjoyed your episode with the drummer of Slipknot. Forgive me, I can't think of his name right now, but it was an awesome episode. Even though he's
Jay Weinberg.
Fan. He's a Preds fan, so I'll forgive him. But
he was a Devils fan first. Yeah.
Yeah. Great drummer, awesome band. I love your podcast. What else are you up to these days?
Yeah, the podcast I kind of put on hiatus just because I had a lot of things going on. I'm not sure if it's going to come back or not, but 6 Degrees with Mike McKenna was mostly goalies, but I started to branch out into, I had a bus driver, I had an athletic trainer, IndyCar drivers, drummer. I tried to be pretty wide ranging. But otherwise, like it's just figuring out my next step. I'm not going to be back with the Golden Knights this season as a TV analyst. So it's figuring out, do I get to stay in TV? Do I get to do something else? That's to be determined. A month and a half ago when I got let go, I probably wasn't as optimistic as I am now. So, like I say, I'm kind of hoping in the next week or two to have a pretty clear idea what I'll do. And I think it'll still be in hockey. I sure hope it's still in hockey. I know I have a lot more to give, and I hope people enjoyed it. But it was a bummer to leave Vegas. I had 2 pretty amazing years getting to do something that I only dreamed of post hockey. Getting to be a broadcaster, go on TV, talking hockey, like it's pretty cool. Like Tyler, like think about in playoffs, man. Like kind of getting to meet everybody and hang out a bit in Vegas was just, I felt like, we're getting on that cusp of really getting to know the city. And
right.
You still get to do it, man. So I envy you there for sure. And, but those are some good memories, man.
No, and you're a great dude. You're a very talented individual. So I'm sure you'll find your place. We wish you all the best, bud. And we thank you very much for coming on. Whatever's next in life, we cheers to that, man. Absolutely.
Yeah. Here's my empty glass of water, everybody. So